What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Christ in Capital, the show that wants to encourage you to love God, love neighbor, and build something. I'm the host, Dustin Johnson, and today's episode is a third try at a discussion with Cody Fields from Westminster Effects and Westminster Effects Doxology podcast. So we'll see how this goes. You know, I'm not barring any like electricity outages or anything like that, because it seems like our track record in the past has not been too good. So yeah. Just be prepared. Before we jump into the podcast, though, I want to remind everyone to go over to Good Fight Outfitters, Facebook, Instagram, Gab, if you're into that. We're starting our own t-shirt brand. Basically, we're going to be launching in the next couple weeks. Want everyone to go get plugged in because we'll be doing a soft launch. Want people to, sign up for our mailing list, and we'll get some discounts out to you guys for the week of launch. So I'm super excited. Ready to get this thing rolling. So go get plugged in. All right. So Cody, as I mentioned earlier, you are the proprietor creator of Westminster Effects. You are the host, content creator at Westminster Effects Doxology podcast. And I will say myself, a serrated blogger. But I'm sure there are other things as well. But why don't you go ahead and tell everyone just a little bit who you are, what is Westminster Effects?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, first off. And second off, I was concerned that we were going to have a fourth try, simply because I had misplaced my in-ear monitors that I always use for recording podcasts. I just placed them in a different spot, and I was just like, oh no, I can't find these. And I'd actually messaged you that on Instagram. It's like, oh boy. It was just on my dresser from podcasting with the Doxology podcast. So yeah, I'm Cody Fields, live in little old Lyman, South Carolina, which is conveniently nestled between Greenville and Spartanburg, South Carolina, in the upstate. So Greenville has exploded the last 30 years or so because of the BMW factory that was installed about 30 years ago, and being conveniently located between Atlanta and Charlotte on I-85, kind of helps things. So where to start? Married to my awesome wife, Kristen. We actually met while I was working kind of a survival job post-college at the mall at Hot Topic. which is just so fitting for a couple of mid-2000s emo kids. And then she tried out.
We're gonna have more in common than I thought. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So so she ended up trying out for my band, and like we're all honest about it. She wasn't good, but we took her anyway. and we just went from there. And we've been married. Goodness, we're coming up on 8 years in August. So wow, that's awesome. Yeah. So just the two of us and two stupid dogs here in South Carolina. We both work from home, and we get along well enough that we don't kill each other every day.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So super thankful for all of that. And then I guess to wrap up me before running into business stuff, I am a deacon or trustee, as we interchangeably use the terms, at my church, at Resurrection Church here in Greer. So if you're in the upstate of South Carolina looking for a church home, hit us up. It's a good time. So I guess I'll go into the business side of things. I guess how I got started was in 2009, I graduated college from North Greenville University. It's a small Southern Baptist school here, with a journalism degree.
Got it.
Which was useless. Not their fault. It was the market's fault.
Well, I mean, from what I've read from your blog, hey,
well,
some of it
in terms of getting a job.
That's right.
In terms of procuring employment. So that was the time when it was all education was a lot slower to pivot even than it is now, right? So that was right at the advent of social media. Like, I think that was 4 years into Facebook's existence, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And I think like 1 or 2 years since Facebook had opened up to anybody, not just people with a .edu email address.
Okay.
And so I graduated in 2009, and every newspaper in the country realized that they forgot how to make money.
I mean, yeah, they're not here anymore anyway. So
yeah, exactly. Nobody reads newspapers, but even like the New York Times parent company had laid off over 1,000 people or something that year.
Yeah.
And so, I did some freelancing here and there, did a bunch of survival job type of stuff, and then landed with an advertising agency managing social media, doing blogs here in Greenville for about a year. And that was in 2014. Like this all took a minute, it's kind of like the Bible, when you have this guy did this thing and then he died.
Yeah.
and it encompasses decades or a couple hundred years.
Yep. They give you the details,
right,
70-year details.
Yeah. So that went south, and I quit with the intention of just going freelance with social media management and blogging and that kind of thing. And I had a couple of clients, and I was doing okay with it, but it wasn't full time. So I've always been a DIY guy with guitar, like changing out pickups and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I got a little DIY overdrive pedal kit, and it was like, that was fun. Let's do that again. And yeah, exactly. And like, I have no electrical engineering training or anything like that. It's all YouTube and reading forums and stuff like that. But I had friends who wanted me to build them stuff, so I would, and just kind of built it out from there. And having a love for guitar, plus a love for the church and theology and church history, but also recognizing that the theological state of modern worship music and a lot of modern American Christianity is kind of a dumpster fire. Yeah. That correlated directly into my overall theme, being church history theme. So ergo Westminster Effects, even though I'm Baptist, because Westminster sounds a lot better than Second London Baptist Effects.
I was gonna say, like, you go to the website and it says Westminster Effects, and then the first effect is 1689.
The 1689, yeah.
Like, hold on, we got to discuss this.
Right. And so, and it's just gone from there since 2015, just making it happen.
Was the knit, so as you're thinking through, I mean, I guess it all didn't happen like at once, but did the idea for the niche kind of like, hit you at one point, or was it just like, maybe this could work, and then it kind of developed over time? Or like, I don't know the landscape of guitar effects, the guitar effects market.
Right.
So like,
so the guitar market is actually really interesting. A study came out last year that said that 1 in 3 new guitars being bought right now are being bought for worship music.
Wow.
So that's an enormous demographic. Yeah. And so a lot of church guys have just gigantic pedal boards, to play 3 or 4 songs, 3 or 4 cover songs, no less. You want
to have options.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And
you want to be able to take Amazing Grace from like really hymnal like hardcore rock.
Right. And I am just as guilty as all of them. Like, I'm not throwing, I'm for that one finger pointed, there's 1,000 pointed back at me, right? Yep. So I recognized the market was ripe, right? And even though the guitar pedal market is oversaturated still, because it's so easy to get into, I recognized, yes, there are some companies that are kind of geared kind of sort of to worship guitarists. It was more so that there were just things that worship guitarists ended up liking to use. And so I came in and said, I'm just going to name all my stuff off after dead guys and kind of celebrate some things. Well, with a couple exceptions. My flagships were named after John Knox, Spurgeon, and John Piper. So John Piper he's not dead yet,
Right.
as Monty Python says.
Right.
So it really did hit me all at once. And, naming another pedal after the tulip and then after regeneration. So all very reformed themes, and kind of encouraging guys, hey, read a book, start with the Bible and then read some other books, and maybe listen to these guys who are awesome, as opposed to the 3 Coldplay songs and a TED Talk version of church.
Right. I have never heard that phrase before, but I might use that.
By all means.
I think it's really cool. It's like a niche within a niche. You've got the worship music market, but then you niche down even further to this kind of reformed understanding. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's all like specifically a reformed thing, but it is more I don't know, more serious about the underlying truths of what we're doing in worship. I think that's
absolutely
a really cool thing.
And the way that I've kind of marketed things is a little bit underhanded, honestly, because I don't always come out against the things that the prosperity gospel stuff. I do have a pedal called the Osteen Distortion that he knows about. His music directors confronted me about it in person. Really nicely.
Serious?
Yeah, really nice guy.
That is crazy.
Yeah. That's a story in and of itself. But I'm not always just like
that's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm not always just railing on like hyper charismatic NAR, that kind of thing that I'm trying to counter, but just propping up, hey, here's John Calvin, here's Jonathan Edwards. And so I've actually had a worship minister at a church that hosted a Rodney Howard Brown event with my pedal on his board. So he's got like Jonathan Edwards staring him in the face while the nonsense is going on. So it's like, well, maybe we can weasel in some better theology in there instead of that nonsense.
So let's talk about how I kind of want to talk about how, like, when you started noticing that you were getting a little bit of success. So I was browsing the internet. That sounds really weird. Browsing the internet. I was looking at your page, and I saw that you have like artists on there that are pretty well known who actually use your pedals.
Yeah.
What is that like? I mean, how does that feel? Take us through that?
It's surreal, honestly. And they all just kind of fell in my lap, honestly. So, for example, Cade Fayner, of American Idol fame, and married Gabby Barrett, and very active in the reformed social media sphere. Like, he just hit me up on Instagram, like sent me a message, hey, love what you're doing, would love to check out some stuff.
That's
so
awesome.
I sent him a pedal or two. Yeah. And then like Mario Camarena of Chon, like one of my friends was following him, and he had seen the Chic-del-a, put it in his Instagram story, and my friend sent me a screenshot like, hey, hit up Mario. Oh, okay, cool. And then I guess the biggest one of being Seth Morrison of Skillet.
Yeah, that's cool.
So my friend,
by the way, their new album's pretty cool.
And it's very postmil. I'm just saying.
It is.
So the way I got hooked up with Seth was my friend Dwayne Atkinson of the Bar Podcast. Dwayne used to live like 10 minutes away from me. Like he's been over to my house, and I've been on his podcast, and he's been on mine, and my dog has even bit him. So
basically family.
Yeah, basically family. And so he had John Cooper on his podcast, and I texted him. I was like, dude, that episode was incredible, blah, blah, blah. And his response was, thanks, and no, I can't give you his number. And I honestly wasn't trying to go there. I was like, no, I'm not. That wasn't my goal here. He's like, but I will give him your website. And so John sent it to Corey and Seth hit me up on Instagram, and Like, so he has a few Westminster pedals, and we've done some cross motion. He's come on my podcast, and it's been really cool. Seth is really easy to work with. And in terms of the guys that I've worked with, it's kind of funny. Like, he's the biggest, but he's also the most accessible for when I'm bouncing an idea off of him.
Really?
Like, he'll respond. You know, obviously, if they're on tour, then it's a little more difficult in terms of how much time he can sink into a response with me. But been a lot of fun to work with him.
That's really cool. You probably know this as well, but having a podcast, even if it's not, you know, the most successful or most visible podcast, it still opens doors to talk to people that you normally would never have talk to. Like, we've had like David Bonson on, Doug Wilson on. Like, you know, it's just surreal. Like, these guys that you listen to a lot, and you just reach out and they're like, sure, let's do it. I'm like,
right. And I have also had Jerry Boyer on my podcast.
Oh yeah.
To talk about the maker versus the takers. And
awesome.
I think the way I heard about his book was, first I heard it on Wilson's podcast, and then I think I may have heard him on yours before I had him on mine. And it's just like, let's add him on Facebook and see what happens.
That's awesome.
And you know, people will be surprised at how many yeses you'll get just because you reached out. So we've had several authors on, and we've given away books and stuff like that. And that's always a lot of fun to just equip people. Right.
Yeah. And I'll just throw this in here for my listeners. Jerry is going to come on the show in the next couple of weeks again. Going to talk about
awesome.
Something different than the maker versus the takers. I'm sure he's got like, that's all that's on his mind right now. So I'm going to take him a different direction. So stay tuned for that. All right. Okay. So let's talk about some complications that you've had. Did we mention at the beginning of the episode? I think it was before we started recording. You've had a couple run-ins with legal, you know, actions. Explain first,
yes.
Chic-del-a, and then maybe Vox. And I guess we don't have to go into the Osteen one, but still that's pretty cool too.
Well, I'll actually go ahead and just start with the Osteen because it's funny, and it's not a legal thing. But at Summer NAMM, so NAMM, NAMM, National Association of Music Merchants, is the big trade show. Usually the normal schedule is January. They do one in Anaheim, and that's the really, really big one. And then they do a smaller one in Nashville in the summer. So at Summer NAMM, I had my own booth actually. And there was worshipmusician.com always has a setup at NAMM. And Joel Osteen's music director, not Israel Houghton, is his name is escaping me right now. But anyway, he writes for them. And so he's, you know, doing the rounds and whatever. And he spent a decent amount of time at my booth one day. And then the next day he came by and he's like, I got to say, man, this isn't cool. He's like, you know, you got all these respectful pedals. He's like, Joel is the most humble person I've ever met. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt, like, he's a good dude, you know, just on a personal level. That doesn't mean he's not a heretic. And he, you know, and then he follows that up with, he doesn't preach health and wealth. And internally, I just had to roll my eyes pretty hard. And I was like, well, I can't really do this right now because I have buyers right there, but I'd be happy to get your number. And we played phone tag a couple of times. A couple of years go by, and then I actually see him again this year at Summer NAMM, or I guess back in the summer again. And this time I wasn't in my own booth. I was doing what's called the Stomp Box exhibit, where it's like 20 different smaller pedal builders. It's just cheaper for everybody to kind of go in that way. And he's kind of working his way down, and then our eyes meet and he realizes it's too late. And he had to talk to me.
Oh gosh.
And so he actually tried it out and liked it.
Oh, was that a conversion?
Right. And you know, he has Jesus into his heart on the spot. And so I guess the next one would be the Chic-del-a. That's the one that most people know. So the artwork of the original Chic-del-a was pretty on the nose of what I was parodying.
Yeah.
Of Christians enjoying the Lord's chicken and that kind of thing. And my lawyer, who is the former bassist in my hardcore band, really good friend, he's like, yeah, you should be covered under satire law if anybody tries to say anything. Well, somebody did say something. And I got the nicest cease and desist ever. Their intellectual property lawyer sent me an email, said, hey, I'm this guy, I represent Chick-fil-A with their intellectual property department. Like, if you could give me a call, that would be great. We'll keep everything really cordial. And so he's like, yeah, Chick-fil-A is really concerned about the C. He's like, we prefer to make friends if we can help it. He's like, we deal with everyone from mom bloggers printing the logo on like a bib for Etsy, all the way to guys printing out fake coupons.
Oh, wow.
And trying to scam, local stores.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense.
And he's, so he assumed the best of me from the get-go, which was really nice. And so we had a conversation, kind of threw around some details and stuff like that. And he's like, well, let me go talk to my employers, and we'll see what happens. And he comes back, he's like, yeah, they really want that changed if you could help it. And he asked how many enclosures I had printed and what my stock was. And he was like, well, let's just make this change as soon as possible. Basically, he's like, if you have just a couple more, and I only had like 2 or 3 enclosures left anyway. He's like, yeah, you can just.
What do you mean enclosures?
Enclosures, as in the metal boxes.
Oh, okay.
That we put the pedals in. I had to turn this one around because it's super secret right now. I'll tell you about that when we stop recording.
Okay.
But the aluminum boxes that we use for the actual housing of the pedal.
Okay.
So I only had a couple of those printed, and he's like, yeah, just go ahead and it's fine. That's not going to be a big deal. And a couple of weeks later, I got a letter in the mail thanking me for cooperating with coupons for free food.
Right.
So it was a win-win. I got a lot of attention from it. The next podcast we recorded, my co-host Lutheran John actually recorded his side remote at his local Chick-fil-A. Like, we just hammed it up. It was ridiculous.
But what was it? It was just the C? Like, what was it about? It was just the C they were concerned
just about. The C. They didn't really care about the font that I used for the controls, the control labels, which was pretty much dead on their cow script.
Yeah. Okay.
If that makes sense. And so, my graphics guy just changed it to a cow and a different font. And I think it actually looks better now. So it was a win-win.
Yeah, I was wondering, because I saw it still on there, so I was like, wanted to figure out how that what came of that. So,
right.
What about Vox?
So Vox was a little more heavy-handed.
Okay. Throwing punches.
Yeah. So yeah, and this one's pretty funny. I'll actually read part of my lawyer's response letter in a second, but they slapped me with an email. Actually, they sent it to the original email. They had the right address, like mailing address, but they sent the email to a professional demo guy that I contracted for YouTube. So they emailed him initially, and it was really confusing. It's like, oh yeah, good work, lawyers. But I didn't realize that they had trademarked their grill cloth pattern, the cloth that goes in front of the guitar amp, since this is an amp simulation pedal for the uninitiated. And and I didn't realize they had trademarked it, and it was, trying to pay homage and kind of be on the nose, like, hey, yes, this is trying to simulate this kind of pedal. And the email that they sent had like 7 different attachments of patents and whatever. Really? And like they were basically trying to show how big and bad they were and intimidate me. Of course, I got a kick out of it. The whole thing, because I knew I was going to get more attention.
Well, yeah, exactly. And at some point you're like, wow, I've made it.
Yeah, a little bit. And I had just come out with this model. I had sold like 20 of them. It's not like I was blowing it out with this. And so they had even tried to say, you using the hashtag of Vox AC30 and hashtag AC30 is, a violation of whatever. And it's like, no, that's ridiculous.
A hashtag?
Yeah, like you can't trademark a hashtag. Come on. So my lawyer responded, and we've actually taken advantage of some of this. So he responded after reviewing your cease and desist request sent to Westminster Effects, the supporting trademark documentation, and pursuant to the phone conversation on December 3rd, 2020 with Westminster Effects owner Cody Fields, we are writing to inform you that we will comply with the wishes of Korg USA Incorporated, their parent company based out of Japan that's acquired them, and Vox Amplification Limited. Westminster Effects has taken subsequent remedial measures to remove any and all material that might possibly infringe on trademarks owned by Korg USA Incorporated and Vox Amplification Limited from its Geneva AmpSim V2 and is reviewing the rest of its product line as a courtesy. The unlicensed use of the diamond grill cloth trademark was an honest mistake by the graphic designer of the pedal, who assumed that the original grill cloth was an off-the-shelf pattern from the late 1950s and not a pattern owned and trademarked by Vox Amplification Limited.
Yeah, who wouldn't thought that?
Right. So here's the kicker. Despite our disagreement with your reasoning and conclusion, we will no longer be using the hashtag AC30, hashtag Vox AC30, or any variation in any first-party social media presence of Westminster Effects from this point forward, but take no responsibility for any third-party owner or reviewer of a Geneva AmpSim V2 updated design from using hashtag AC30 or any variation thereof, e.g. hashtag VoxLike, hashtag VoxSim, hashtag VoxAmp, hashtag VoxAC15, hashtag sounds better than a Vox AC30.
Oh God. Oh my. I hate that you have to do that. Yeah, that's
we had a good time with that one. Like when I was reading this, I just fell out laughing. That was just perfect. Sounds better than a Vox AC30.
but it's terrible that you have to think about, well, yeah, but we're not gonna guarantee that other people aren't gonna do this.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I hate that that's the case, but
yeah, it's silly. I get it. But one thing that we can do is chuckle about it while it's happening. If I got all bent out of shape and anxious over stuff, it wouldn't have done me any good with my business. So, the best thing I could have done was roll with it and use that to my advantage. And I did. And obviously over a year later, I still am. I'm still talking about it.
Right. Yeah, at least you didn't have like a warehouse full of these back ordered and ready to go. And now you're like,
right. Everything's hand built by me. So, there's only so much I can do in the first place.
Right. That's cool. I mean, well, it's not cool that you're in those situations, but it's a cool story.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. I want to talk real quick, maybe two different questions, and we can maybe wrap up. I don't want to take too much of your time, but the first thing I wanted to ask you is who do you think is doing the best kind of solid theologically, the truth aspect as well as the sound good audio quality, a good product type of worship music? And let's lead into the discussion of what you're working on with Westminster Effects with this new project that you're doing.
So I think the likes of Matt Boswell, Matt Papa, Andrew Peterson, Shane and Shane, they're all doing really good work. What's another one? City of Light, Austin Stone, they're all doing good work. And keeping and they're all theologically sound, theologically rich, even. You're not restricted to the big three, quote unquote, of worship music if you want that contemporary sound in your church. And that's something that's up for discussion, I think. Regulative or not, and I definitely lean more regulative, but I don't think you're restricted necessarily to an organ and 4-part harmony.
Yeah, that's like the balance between, it's not a free for all, but it's also not, it's
Right.
the assumption of the regulative principle is, God tells us how he wants to be worshiped,
and
but it doesn't
and
tell
then,
you what color the carpet should be, what color, all.
right. So psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, right? And the psalms say, hey, cymbals are cool, harps and whatever, right? So, an electric guitar, the big thing for me is emotional manipulation.
Yeah.
Right. Like music is emotional by its nature. But, a lot of modern worship bands really rely on, heavy repetition, basically putting you into a trance kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think pretty much your entire audience is going to agree with me on that. I think I'm in a safe space for that.
Yes.
But what we're doing with Westminster Worship, basically I've teamed up with our worship minister at my church and some other friends, and we're slowly releasing songs meant for congregational worship in the local church.
Okay.
Heavy emphasis on the Psalms. So the first one that we put out several months ago is Psalm 130 verbatim. The only thing that is changed is we repeat a couple of verses as a hook, and that's it.
Yeah, you kind of have to. I mean, Shane and Shane did something kind of similar with their Psalm stuff.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, at some point you got to change it up if you wanted it to fit into a certain meter that is going to catch on with people. Yeah,
exactly. And so but our, credit to them for doing the Psalms. But most of theirs are, they'll take a couple of phrases and then it's more of a summary. Where our rendition is verbatim. Like it is like if you memorize that song, you've memorized Psalm 130.
Okay.
And that's one of our goals, is to help the word of Christ dwell in people richly a little more.
Got it.
So whether that's, outright quoting a psalm or quoting sections of scripture within the song or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yes, we want that to happen. So our three main goals are to be theologically rich, not just not wrong.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Not just offensive, but offensive.
Right. We want to actually say something, right?
Yeah.
We want to be musically interesting, right? There's a lot of really theologically rich stuff out there that is
boring.
Kind of boring.
Yeah.
And I'm blanking on the third one. My goodness. Theologically rich, musically interesting. Oh, congregationally singable. I've already said that kind of, but one of my concerns is I'm not naturally a tenor.
Okay.
Right. I want like a 45-year-old auto mechanic with no musical background to be able to at least kind of keep up.
Yeah.
Right. Or the soccer mom with no musical background to be able to have a clue, as opposed to what you often see. And I can pick on Chris Tomlin a little bit because he's usually relatively sound, but the dude sings in the rafters, and his stuff is not singable by average people.
Yeah.
Or you think of artists like on the other end of the theological spectrum and being not very sound most of the time, like Carrie Joe, incredible voice.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The talent is just incredible, but she's so up there that literally no one is going to keep up with her.
Right.
But this is meant for congregational work. You're singing this in church. God's people gathered together, right? So make it singable for average people.
Yeah, that I think that's very important. I mean, I think anyone who is familiar with church life, in the slightest, knows that singing is essential to our life as Christians together in community. Such a big part of the scriptures. And honestly, I haven't done a huge dive into how singing is so important to our identities as Christians and as believers. But I know it's important. I know that's a key component to us, to our community. Yeah. And
it's part of it, just real quick, part of it is you can remember doctrines you've sung easier than doctrines that you've heard in an outline from a sermon.
right. Yeah, but it's still even more different than like a poem, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like the actual like the actual like melodies and harmonies and the way those work together, and
That big combination. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and all these individual parts, these oh gosh, maybe I'm coming to a realization right now. All of these different these diverse things coming into one unity. It's like this
I like it. Yeah.
Diversity and unity, all that sort of thing. But yeah, there's something about like singing together that I think is important. God wants us to do that, and I think that's something to explore.
One way you could put it is music images the body of Christ. In the every tribe, tongue, people, and nation, you've got different parts: drums, guitars, whatever, piano, and then voices, all these different things doing one thing together.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think what you're doing is very cool, to say the least. I think it's very needed. Like I was mentioning, I did a little stint as I wouldn't call myself the worship leader, but I played guitar a little bit for a small church I was at.
Yeah.
And they were trying to start something, and they used the worship initiative, their whole like thing where they're trying to get people to, be able to play some of these songs and all that.
Yep.
Stuff. And it was really helpful. I think it was not for a lot of people who are not, it just wasn't as accessible as I thought it was going to be. But I think what you're doing, bringing the Psalms to the music, making those something that we as Christians kind of bathe ourselves in and kind of soak in, so that we get scriptures in our minds, that we can preach it to ourselves whenever we need. I think that's really awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, man. And like what you were talking about is trying to make resources available too. With that is being able to make sure, like, hey, here is how you play it. Right. Like, most of us work full time and we don't have time to like make up our own guitar parts in time for rehearsal. Like we actually have our church band rehearsal tonight on Thursday evenings. And so like leading up to, from Sunday to Thursday, whenever I have time to prepare, I don't have time to write. Just tell me how to do the thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that's one of our goals is, hey, here is everything. It's almost plug and play. Here's what you need. Go play it in your church. Have fun.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And for everyone listening, there is an example, at least one that I saw on the website. So if you want to go check it out.
We're trying to get one out by the end of February and make it more of a regular thing. So that was more proof of concept than anything. We don't even have any vocal harmonies.
Okay, so there's a prototype on Westminster Effects.
Effectively, yes.
Okay, last thing before I let you go. Best advice that you want, business advice that you want Christians to know, or just anyone in general. What is something that you've learned that you think is needed if you're going to start a business or start your own income, side project or anything like that?
Oh man, that's a fantastic question. I think it comes down to the fact that it will be a grind. You're not going to get rich quick. Whatever idea you have to keep telling people about it over and over and over again ad nauseum. You can't make one social media post, expect that to go viral, and then expect that to pay your bills for the rest of your life.
Some people get lucky, but
right. Yeah. So, some people, I mean, it just kind of happens, but the majority of us, no, there is going to be a grind to grow the thing. And even when it's grown to support you full time, there's going to be a grind. You're going to have to do stuff that you don't like doing. Yeah. I don't like doing QuickBooks or stuff like that. Like nobody gets a kick out of going to stamps.com and printing out shipping labels, right. but you got to do it. And so anticipate the grind, but then appreciate the grind. right? God made us for work. Work isn't part of the curse. The toilsome nature of some work is part of the curse.
Yeah.
And so even within the grind, you can have joy and be thankful to God for the grind. So
okay,
that's all off the top of my head. I don't know if I'm full of crap or not, but
no, it's
we'll
good.
let the listeners decide.
I like hearing from people who are actually doing things, just an honest take on those sorts of things. Like, you know, what have you learned, you know, that has stuck with you the most? Because I think, you know, aggregating a lot of that on this podcast, I think is really helpful for people who are listening, you know.
Yeah.
Get those little tidbits, as maybe they're starting their own thing, or thinking about starting their own thing. So I think that's really, really helpful. All right. So where would you like people to go get in touch with you? Obviously, westminstereffects.com. What else? Anywhere else?
Yeah, westminstereffects.com. You can find us at Instagram, Facebook, Spotify for Westminster Worship. And then also check out the Westminster Effects Doxology podcast, which we publish weekly, which is normally a discussion with me, my pastor here in Greer, and a confessional Lutheran in Nebraska. So it's good times, and you can find that on all of your podcast catchers. And that also has the audio version of my blog whenever I get around to that. I'm trying to make it every week, but usually it's turning out to be once a month right now.
Yeah, that's not the blog isn't housed anywhere else. You're just reading them on.
Yeah, so I read what I publish on codyfields.com.
Did you hear that?
I did.
That is crazy that the timing worked out like that. Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
There you go, Leslie. Sorry about that. I have no idea why that did that. All right, anyway, so keep going. Wait.
Yeah. So the blog is at codyfields.com. And it's going again.
Okay, hold on.
This is perfection.
I can't believe that it timed that well. Like we were just
Yeah. I mean, this is what professional broadcasters do, right?
That's right. Okay.
Which I mean, anyway, being a sports fan and seeing all the errors that ESPN makes on their score bug of like putting the wrong logo and stuff like that, like, there's no such thing as professionalism, right? But yeah, westminstereffects.com, codyfields.com, and then find me on Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff.
Perfect. I love it, man. This you know, this has been a one that's been in the making. We've had to reschedule a couple times. One due to a baby, which well, we can talk about that later. But yeah, thank you so much for joining. I've been waiting to do this one for a long time, and
sir.
I'd love to have you on again sometime. We could probably go deeper into some of these more entrepreneurship type discussions, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So let's stay in touch. All right, everyone. Go get in touch with Cody. Go like Good Fight Outfitters, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. And yeah, love God, love neighbor, build something. Talk to you guys later.
This has been a Manifold Ministries podcast. For more content, visit us at manifoldministries.com.